Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome to my channel. Just kidding. Everybody's new here, including me, because this is my first YouTube video. My name's Tabitha. I am a married mom of 3. I have a daughter named Audrey. She is about to be 4. Daughter Jacqueline, who's 2.5. And then my youngest baby, who this birth story video is about, Grant, just turned 2 months a couple days ago. So without further ado, I'll get into his story. So, like I said, he was born a couple months ago. February 17th, 2020 was his birthday, or is his birthday. And I decided to have a home birth with him. So he was my first home birth. And I had both of my daughters in the hospital, obviously. And their births were fine. Nothing traumatic happened. I don't have any, trauma story that never wants me to go into a hospital again or anything like that. But I just felt like interventions got pushed on me especially with my second daughter, Jacqueline, that made my labor a lot longer. And as a result, had complications happen with it. And my labor with her was 25 hours long from start to finish. And I just don't feel like it was necessary. Someone broke my water. My doctor broke my water without my permission. And it was just a hot mess. I'll do her birth story at a different time though. But because of that, I decided it was time to educate myself. So before both of their births, I honestly had not done a whole lot of research. I just figured, you go to the doctor, you go to the hospital, you have a baby, and then you go home. There's nothing really to it. But I found out quickly there was a whole lot more to it, and I needed to know what I wanted so I could stand up for myself better. So I started doing my research, and when I was first starting my research, I actually had a friend who had a home birth, and I didn't know anybody who had a home birth. At least I didn't know anybody who intentionally had a home birth. And so I just felt like it kind of opened my eyes to that option. And she was, completely normal, and her birth went great. And she talked so good about the experience. I felt like maybe there's more to this. So I came across this podcast called Doing It at Home. And that podcast interviews different people who have interviews midwives, all sorts of different people who have had babies at home. And not only do they talk to people who have had phenomenal experiences, but they also talk to people who end up transferring to the hospital, which is of course the last thing you want as a couple who decides to have a home birth. You want to be in the home. But I really appreciated the fact that they give you well-rounded opinions and not just one specific mindset. In fact, I will link their podcast below if you want to go check that out. So I listened to them. I also watched literally hundreds of hours of birth stories and birth vlogs on YouTube. And by the end of it, I was decided I wanted to have a home birth for my third baby. Now it was time to get my husband on board. So honestly, I thought he was going to be like, what in the world are you talking about? No way are you having a baby in the home. You're supposed to be in the hospital. But he surprisingly was not like that. And I don't mean that in a bad way. My husband's super supportive. That was what we knew. But he kind of jumped on board pretty quickly. He had some common questions, what does it cost? Is my carpet going to be ruined afterwards? All those sort of things. And I think a lot of people have those questions if you've never had a home birth before, which I will do a later video. If anybody's interested, comment below if you are, on kind of those details of what a home birth entails. But for my son's story, we decided to go ahead and call the 2 midwives that were in our area who follow the North Carolina regulations for having home births. So if you don't know, different states have different laws around home births. Some states you have more freedom in, some you don't. I wanted someone who followed the rules and regulations of our area. I didn't want somebody random who, watched a birth story on YouTube, so it felt like they could help assist me. Like, that wasn't my thing. Now, if it's your thing, good for you. I absolutely think you should do exactly what you feel is best for you and your baby. But for me, it was not the best thing. I needed to have confidence in my midwife because it was my first time. So I called the first midwife, and I just got a bad vibe from her off the phone, honestly. And not that she did anything wrong. I'm sure she's just fine as a midwife. Something set me off on the phone. I didn't even make an appointment with her. Then I called the second midwife. The phone conversation went great. We went, and so we decided to go in for an appointment. Now, mind you, I was not pregnant at this point. This was about 3 months before I ended up getting pregnant. But I wanted to know exactly who I was going to use before I ever got pregnant, just so I would have that confidence level. If you have that ability, if you're not pregnant yet, you're trying to decide if you want to have a home birth, I highly suggest doing that. The level of confidence I had going into even the beginning of my pregnancy was amazing because I knew exactly who I was going to. I already felt comfortable with her even after one appointment. It just was a great experience for me all around. So if you can do that, I highly suggest doing it. But we got pregnant in June of 2019. So actually on my first daughter Audrey's birthday, June 3rd, we found out we were going to have a baby. And from there, my pregnancy went pretty normal for me. Now, I get really sick the first trimester, and I puke a couple times a day. Nothing crazy out of the ordinary. After first trimester, it goes away. I do have a problem where my body produces too much relaxin when I'm pregnant. So your body's supposed to produce extra relaxin when you're pregnant. It helps you to your hips and your pelvic and all that to separate as you're giving birth. But my body starts producing it like at the beginning of second trimester, and so much of it that my joints pop out of place. Like my hips pop out, my shoulders and my elbows will pop out towards the end of pregnancy. So it's not exactly fun, but it's something that just happens to me when I'm pregnant. It goes away after I'm not pregnant. But like I said, for me, that was normal. And it was honestly better than it had been with my second daughter, Jacqueline, because with her, I ended up in a wheelchair because of it. And I was able to work this time all the way up until the last work day before I actually gave birth. I worked all the way through. So my pregnancy went great, like I said, and it came to January 2020. So my due date was February 7th, 2020. And I had my first daughter a week early and my second daughter 3 weeks early. So at 39 and 37 weeks. And because of that, I kind of figured that I was going to have another early birth. I just assumed, honestly, because I'd had 2 babies before their due dates. I thought this is probably what this baby's going to do too. Now, looking back, I really believe the reason I had them before their due dates was because induction was kind of pushed on me. But I can't say that for sure, but I personally believe that. But I thought I would probably have the baby in January because of that. So I thought between 37 and 39 weeks, I might have the baby because that's when I had my other 2. Now, I wanted to get to 37 weeks. That was my mile marker. I had to get there because in North Carolina, specifically, you can only legally have a baby at home between the weeks of 37 and 42. That 5-week span is the only time you are legally allowed to have a baby at home, just because of complications on either side. Born too early, they may need oxygen, may need other supports. Born too late, there just tends to be more complications. So I knew I wanted to get to that 37-week mark, and everybody else thought I was having the baby in January. I thought it was. Let me tell you, that was the longest month of my whole entire life because I never had the baby in January. He was born on February 17th. So I went to my due date, which was February 7th. No baby. The only thing I had Braxton Hicks. And I had prodromal labor, which prodromal labor is where you are having consistent contractions. So they are 3 to 5 minutes apart, generally. For me, they are. And they can even last up to a few hours, but they never actually progress. So they never go to the next level. And so it's real labor, but it doesn't actually turn into having a baby at the end of it. So I'd had that pretty much actually from like 37 weeks on. I'd had that. But other than that, I hadn't had anything. I was feeling okay. I hit my 40-week mark, nothing. So I was still working. Then I hit my 41-week mark. 41 weeks was on a Friday. That was my marker for each new week. And I did not go to work that day. I worked from home that day. Mostly, honestly, because people in my office were pretty sure I was going to like drop a baby out at any second, and they were getting really nervous about me being there. They were more nervous than I was about me being there, just because people don't often go to 41 weeks and still be at work. So I worked from home that day. I also went to the doctor that day, and or the midwife, and she, saw me. She said, "You look great." She did. She checked the baby. The baby was doing phenomenal. He wasn't under any stress, anything like that. And so she said, "Would you like me to check you?" So this was the first time I would be checked at 41 weeks. I had not been checked at all until then. Two reasons. It's not her practice to do that. It's not a lot of midwives' practices to check you before your past or due date, but it also was a preference of mine. I did not want to know how dilated I was. So if you don't know about dilation basically tells you how open your cervix is. So the higher the number, you can get to 10, the bigger your cervix is. And a lot of people correlate that number with how soon they're going to have their baby. It's not necessarily true. It can be an indicator, but it is not a set thing. If you're at a 4, you're having a baby in the next 6 hours. That doesn't mean that. In fact, I was at a 4 for weeks with my second child before I ever gave birth to her. So I did not want to know that number, because knowing that number just kind of stressed me out. I said, "Yes, please check me, but just tell me if I progressed or not. Don't give me a number." She's completely in line with that. So she did so. And she said, "Yep, you are very early on. You have some progression. You're softened a little bit, but you're still pretty early." And she did not do any measures to help push a labor along or anything like that at this point. And she just said, "Go home, rest, have a good weekend, and we'll make an appointment for Monday, because next week we'll need to get a little more aggressive with our kind of natural induction plan, if you will. Because keep in mind, I cannot have a baby at home after 42 weeks. And at this point, I'm 41 weeks. So the weekend went by, nothing. I had some contractions here and there, but nothing too crazy. And I had an appointment on Monday morning. And I go in. She says, "All right, I'm going to check you again. And while I'm in there, if you'd like, I'll go ahead and strip your membranes to see if we can help anything." So she did that. And when she's in there, she said, "Wow, you definitely progressed." Again, she didn't give me a number. She stripped my membranes. And then after I got dressed again and all that, she said, "Okay, I want you to go home, get your stuff ready. I think you're having a baby today." I was like, "What?" I really was completely shocked by that. Oh, I didn't tell you. That morning I had no contractions. I had some over the weekend, but that morning I had nothing. Not even a twinge, not even a period cramp, anything, like nothing. It was the best morning as far as that as far as that goes, for literally weeks. And I told her, I actually asked her, I said, "Okay, so if I don't have this baby tomorrow, what's the plan for today? What's the plan for tomorrow?" I did not believe her. And she said, "Well, we'll talk about that tomorrow, but I think you're having this baby today." And I said, "Okay." And she said, "Go home and get ready." So I did. I had my 2 girls and my husband. We fed them lunch. We laid them down for a nap. My husband lay down for a nap. We set up the pool before he did that. We went to the store and got stuff to make soup because he was going to make soup for the midwives. We were ready to go because I did figure hopefully this baby is coming soon. I just didn't think it was that day. So she told me when I was in the office, if you have any contractions at all, with any sort of consistency, I want you to text me. Don't wait for the 411 or 511, which means you're having them every 4 minutes or lasting a minute for at least an hour. She said, don't follow that. If you have anything consistent, text me. Well, I was having, by the time it was about 2:30, I was having contractions about every 5 to 7 minutes apart, give or take. But they didn't hurt at all. I just knew they were there. And a lot of people always ask, what does a contraction feel like? To me, it just feels like a really intense tightening. It's not pain, not like pain like you would describe like a sharp stabbing pain. It just feels very intense, especially once you get farther into your labor. But I wasn't feeling anything. I knew they were there, but I wasn't in any discomfort. I was cleaning the kitchen. So I said they're about 5 to 7 minutes apart, but it's not anything yet. This isn't it. And she said, okay, well, I'm coming. And I was like, again, I was very shocked by it. And she's about an hour, 45 minutes, hour away. And I told her, I said, okay, if you want to, but I don't think you need to. I just didn't want to make the trip unnecessarily. And she said, I'll just feel better if I do. And I was like, okay. I don't know why I didn't trust her. You know, she's assisted in literally hundreds of babies being born. But I thought I knew, but I was wrong, just to let you know. So we got to her midwife assistant. You always have the midwife and then the assistant. The assistant got to the house about 3:30, and I was still doing okay. They were a little closer apart together, but I was still doing fine. And then the midwife got there about 4. And when she got there is the time I probably would have texted her and told her that it was time for her to come. So I was now having to stop and breathe through them. They were about 3 to 5 minutes apart at this time. I felt like this might actually be it. So in about an hour and a half, they'd gotten to that point. And that's what I would probably deem my early active labor, was about 4 o'clock. I was in that stage for about an hour and a half. So there was nothing, there was, things were getting more intense, but nothing exciting was happening. Both of my daughters were there. In fact, I will put it at the end of this video, but when I was having a couple of my contractions, my daughter Audrey, who is just so sweet, she just came up and put her arms around me and just was rubbing my back. Literally, probably the best moment of that birth, other than him actually arriving. It makes me want to cry just thinking about it. But they were there and they did great. They were there the whole labor and delivery. They were right by the couch when I had him, which I'm getting a little ahead of myself on that. But so nothing exciting happened. I did have a pool set up, so I originally wanted to have a water birth. Just because I liked the idea of it. But at first, my husband accidentally made the water too hot. He just didn't know. And then the assistant took a bunch of water out, and then it was too cold. It was just kind of a mess. So I didn't end up getting into the pool until I think probably about between 6 and 6:30. The timeline kind of gets a little foggy for me. So I was needing it then. I was needing some relief from the intensity. And again, it wasn't really pain. It was just really intense. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not one of those women, which I think it's cool if you do, who had a supernatural birth. It definitely hurt like a lot, but it was just intense. And I used kind of the hypnobirthing techniques where you concentrate on your breathing very heavily, on low moaning sounds. I probably opened my eyes a total of 10 times the whole time I was in labor. I just really focused in my mind on getting through each wave. My husband, not being rude, just giving the facts, said I kind of sounded like a cow. I just was like really low, just moaning, like almost consistently, especially towards the end. But I got in the pool, like I said, about between 6 and 6:30. I was needing some relief, and it did bring me some relief from the intensity. But I just could not get my bearings in the pool. And I wish I could have. I so wish I could have, but I couldn't. I felt like there was something that I needed to be doing, but I couldn't figure it out. And I was getting frustrated. In fact, it's probably, except for when right before I actually had him, it's probably the only time I truly lost control of what was happening and got overwhelmed, because I just couldn't figure out what my body was supposed to be doing in the pool. It was just giving me too much buoyancy, I guess. So I got out after about 20-30 minutes. It might not even been that long. And my midwife suggested that I go labor on the toilet. So I had done so at the very beginning. I didn't love it at the beginning. It made things a lot more intense. But I listened to what she said. My midwives were very hands off. It was completely up to me what I wanted to do. I didn't stop moving almost that entire labor. I just kept moving and moving. I got in different positions. As things progressed, different things worked for me. I could not imagine having a natural birth while laying flat on my back, not being able to move. I 100% believe if I would have been in the hospital unable to move, I would have asked for Pitocin. Or not Pitocin, an epidural. 100% believe that. The moving around helped so much. But when I sat on the toilet the second time, it made things a lot more intense, but it felt like a productive intense. And it was about 6:30. I think I hit my kind of transition time, and I just sat there for about 45 minutes to an hour. So I think I got up about 7:30. Again, it's a little foggy, but I think it was about 7:30 that I got up. And my midwife asked me, would you like me to check you just to see where things are? And I said, yeah, go ahead and do that. And again, I didn't want to know a number, but it kind of helped her to know where we needed to go from here. So she did, and she said, you are almost there, but there is a small lip of your cervix that's over his head. I think if that cervix would move, you'd have him. He would be here. So she said, if you would like to, I will put my hand up there, and I want you to push on your next contraction, and I'll try to slip that off. And I said, okay, because at this point, again, it was about 7:30. I was getting kind of tired. So she did that. We tried a couple times. I just wasn't ready yet. To be honest, my body didn't feel ready yet. I didn't feel ready yet. And I listened to my body, and I told her, this isn't working. And she said, you do what you want to do. Again, she's the best midwife. You do what you want to do. In fact, when you stop pushing, the lip is flipping back. So I think I agree with you. I don't think we're there yet. So I went back to the toilet because it had felt very productive, me sitting there. Those contractions felt like they were doing something. So I went back to the toilet, and I was there for about 25 more minutes. So till about right at 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock, I came back out, and I was very tired at this point. It had been 4 hours. I don't know how women have natural births that are... Sorry, you probably hear my kids screaming in the background. I don't know how women have natural births that last for 12 hours. I would like to believe I could. I don't know if I could, though. I think things had just moved so quickly for me compared to my other labors that it felt like a lot. So I asked if I could lay down for a couple minutes, and she said, yeah, absolutely. You do what you need to do. So as I went to lay down, I actually sat on my coffee table. because a contraction hit me. So I sat on my coffee table, and after that contraction stopped, I went to get up and turn because it was right in front of my couch. And as I did so, I felt Grant drop. It was, relief is not the right word, but it was just, I don't, like, it was just a totally different feeling. Like, I felt like, okay, we are ready now. He dropped, and I felt like it was time. And I just can't describe it. But when I laid down, she looked, she said, yep, the lips moved. You are ready to push when you want to. I started pushing at 8:06. I have the record from the birth. I started pushing at 8:06 p.m. At 8:07 p.m., he was born. I literally pushed 1 minute. Like 3 or 4 pushes. I do remember in that time, I literally said, I don't want to do this. I'm not doing this. My husband said, yeah, you are. You don't have a choice at this point. But so I had the midwife and her assistant at my feet. I had my husband and my 2 daughters at my head. I cannot tell you how just surreal that experience was for me. It was everything I wanted. And he was born. They plopped him on my chest. My daughter cried from the intensity of the emotion in the room. She was not scared at all. She stopped crying within seconds. I think she just felt the intensity in the room. And they put him on my chest. He started crying about 30 seconds later. And it was just perfect. So he was born at 8:07 p.m. on February 17th. He weighed 8 pounds, 8 ounces. He was 21 and a half inches long. So my biggest baby to date. And I would not change one thing about the whole birthing experience at home. He laid on my chest for over an hour and a half. They did not take him off my chest. He didn't move. He didn't get disconnected from the placenta. I delivered my placenta naturally about 10 minutes later. He did not get taken from the placenta for almost 2 hours. The cord had completely stopped pulsing and was white. It was everything I could have thought and more that I wanted from a birth happened. I couldn't ask for a better one. And just that experience completely made me know that I had made the right decision for me and my family. And after they weighed him and everything, they cleaned up by midnight. So 4 hours later, the midwife was gone. The house looked like nothing had ever happened. And we were all in bed going to sleep within 4 hours in our own bed. I'd even already showered at that point. We were in the comfort of our home, our little perfect family. And it was perfect, honestly. I couldn't ask for anything better. And if you're considering a home birth, if you're just watching this for the fun of it, like I've done sometimes, it's intense. It's a lot. It takes a lot of determination, and there's going to be moments that you want to give up. In fact, I always heard that when you feel like you can't do it, it's almost over. And I would agree with that completely. When you feel like you can't do it anymore, it's almost over. That was the case for me. But if it's what you want, if you think you want that process is so worth the freedom and the comfort of being in your home. And the midwives cleaned everything up. Like I said, it didn't even look like I had a baby by the time I went to bed that night. It was just beautiful. So I had my home birth. Like I said, I will do more birth stories for my other babies, but my kids are now crying, so I'll let you guys go. But I hope you join me. If you have not, please hit the subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you later. Bye.